Welcome to episode 130 of the Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. I am Stephen Rothberg. I'm one of your co-hosts, and I'm excited about today because we're going to be talking about the thing that I'm really bad at, and that's perfection. Peter, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. Hope you are doing well. You look like you are. I'm Peter Zollman of the AIM Group. We've been doing this podcast thing for a long time now.
Longer than you care to remember.
No, longer than I can remember. to dementia and all that stuff. Never make dementia jokes.
Is that tushy or touche?
I don't know.
Okay.
In any case, we have with us today Lee Cage Jr., and I'm reading from the screen. He's Director for Enterprise Transformation, Strategy, and Technology for BDO USA, a Human Resources Management NCO for the Army National Guard, and host of the 15 Minutes With podcast. And we got 15 minutes with him.
Yeah.
And we're already a minute and 20 in, so we better get going. Lee, welcome. Thank you for joining us from Austin, Texas, a wonderful town. I could get into a long story about why Austin is one of the two capitals in this country that is not in the state of which it is capital, but I'm going to skip it. How are you, Mr. Mr. Cage? Good to join us.
I'm well.
Or do we salute?
No salutes needed. Just good
salutes.
banter and fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
18 years in.
Yeah, I'm counting
military.
down. Okay. Every day, every year is the countdown. So yes.
Yeah. Counting down to what though?
What do you mean? To packing my bags and saying goodbye to the Army life. I joined the Army at 17 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Let's talk about recruiting and recruitment and how you work with BDO on that, and then how you work with the Army on that, if you do, and all that good stuff.
Those who know BDO.
Those who know BDO. Yeah.
I have to confess, I didn't know that tagline. So on to recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my side of the house, sometimes we like to think of recruitment being disjointed from like onboarding and the core HCM side of things. I like to think of recruiting and talent acquisition as being one continuous life cycle of a candidate down to them becoming an employee. And so it really is the start of who you are. When a person goes out to your job board or to your recruiting platform, it's kind of like they're seeing the angles of the organization, right? They're getting attracted to what you are putting out there. They're seeing what you stand for, what your mission is, what your values are, and they make a choice whether or not they want to date the organization or not, right? Whether they're going to swipe left or swipe right to the organization.
Good analogy. And
Yeah.
by the way, we got so tired of seeing things that were the Tinder of job boards and the Tinder of this and we hated it. Anyway, Stephen.
You and I connected a while back through the Work Defined podcast network.
Yeah.
And when I saw some of the things that you have a passion around, the one that really jumped out at me that we're going to talk about here is sort of my words, not yours, but perfection is the enemy of progress. Done is a form of brave. Talk with us a little bit about sort of where you've seen that in your work history, where maybe some leaders demand perfection from themselves, from others, and that's actually counterproductive.
Yeah, it actually happens more than you might think across not just recruiting, but just in ERP implementations as a whole. In some cases, when you're scoping out things and you're looking at what's going to be in or out of scope and what you're looking to accomplish, people think that the SOW is like this magical thing. And if I achieve this, I've achieved perfection. Very rarely is that the case. There's still technology enablement. There's still change management. There's still bringing people along for the ride. And it takes time to do that. None of it will be perfected. And leaders who can adjust and shift fire, those are the leaders who will survive.
How can people let go of the idea that things have to be perfect? And especially in recruiting, it's a lot of art, a certain amount of science that's growing as AI gets in. How do you let go of perfect?
I think it starts with putting yourself in the shoes of both the candidate and of the employer. As a candidate, I had a friend of mine who recently was going to apply for a job. It took her 2 weeks to try to what you would say, work the resume so it would fit what she was looking for. By the time she finally submitted the resume, the job was already closed. People are spending so much time trying to get ready to be ready that they that they sometimes miss the opportunity. My grandmother would call it fixing to get ready. And so I always encourage people, just act. You can take 70% of the information, 70% of information, especially, in this day and age, and adjust as you go. If 70% of that information, 70% of the code or the configuration or whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish, if it works, action that and then adjust as you go.
Finding a great career has always been a challenge. But today, with the massive changes underway in just about every sector of the economy, in just about every country in the world, finding a great new career is even more challenging. And if you're a student, recent graduate, or someone else early in their career, it's even harder for you because you just don't have the experience that those who might be 10, 20, 30 years older than you have. The answer? The podcast. From dorms to desks. A podcast by College Recruiter job search site, where every week we take a deep dive into a topic specifically of interest to candidates who are early in their careers and looking for a great part-time, seasonal, internship, or other entry-level job. I'm really glad that you just used the word action because that was a word that I was about to use. One of the leaders of College Recruiter, Jeanette Leeds, who's our COO, one of her favorite expressions is that the choice to not take action is a choice.
Yeah.
And I find with friends, family members, coworkers, whatever, that there's this group of people who would strongly prefer that somebody else make the choice and sort of tend to put themselves into these situations where they only have one choice. They're told or they're forced to do something. Talk about it from a leadership perspective, because I think a lot of the listeners of this podcast are in that role. How do you get yourself out of that box if you find yourself as one of those people?
I think it also comes to having support within the organization that you're in.
Hmm.
And that support of saying, hey, if you make a decision that isn't exactly the one that we would have preferred or the one that we want you to have in the future, we're not going to penalize you for that. So being in a place that accepts that amount of risk, that amount of innovation, that amount of, hey, 80% is good, 70% is good. And we can adjust. That also requires the organization to have an appetite for that type of thing. For a leader who is in that type of organization and who's struggling to make the decision, it starts with baby steps. A friend of mine listens to this song by Olivia Dean called Baby Steps. So I love that song because it says, one, two, all those things are just baby steps. So start actioning small things and figure out where your risk tolerance really is with making decisions with limited to no information.
That's good in some cases, but 80%, if I could ever hit 80% on decisions and get them right, all the people I work with would be amazed and thrilled.
As well as the person you're married to, and I've met her, and I'm 100% confident, not 80%, that she would agree.
50% she'd settle for. Um,
Baby
she'd be
steps.
thrilled, right?
Baby
But
steps, Peter. Baby
but
steps.
but the question is 80%'s great on certain things, but take a software decision or an operational action that matters to the way you run a company or a job board. 80% ain't going to cut it. So what do you say to that, buddy?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. Use what you have. If you don't use what you have, your competitors will use what they have. I'm reminded, and we're in an interesting point in the world right now. And as you know, I'm in the Army National Guard. I think back to some of the conflicts over the last couple of years. In some of those places, like Ukraine, for example, they used what they had. They didn't have everything that Russia had. They used what was accessible to them, what was available to them, and they adjusted and shifted fire. And for those that are in environments that don't have a good tolerance for that, competitors will continue to lap you.
Good point. And by the way, we love the Ukraine analogy because both of us firmly believe that Ukraine needs support, and the people of Ukraine need support right now, and so forth. So, Stephen, go ahead. Sorry.
The baby steps, I think another way of putting that, like I'll tell people, and I think the baby steps is a much nicer way of saying it, but I tell people, like, if you're trying to eat an elephant, you gotta do that one bite at a time. Don't try to, like, swallow the whole thing because it's never going to happen. Put yourself in the shoes of a sales leader, a CTO, a CEO, whatever, of an online marketplace. Kinda like Peter was alluding to, we can have these tech projects that can be very long, very detailed. They might require 1,000 things all going right in order to work. I think, Lee, what you're saying is that there are different levels of perfection or good enough in different organizations, and
Yeah.
maybe also talk about the different things those organizations do, because I kind of get the feeling like you would be much more tolerant of a mistake in an email sent to a prospective customer than in code that's going to crash the ability to process payments.
Ye
Am I off
yeah.
base?
No, you're exactly right, and to be perfectly honest with you, even in both of those scenarios, both of those things require the organization and the leader to make a decision. And to your earlier point, no decision is a decision. No action is an action, right? I think for me personally, and in many of the customers that I've served, configuration, code, we try our best to get it right. People are testing, they're verifying, they're validating, but the process is still iterative, right? So having an iterative methodology, an iterative approach to coding, to developing, to pushing information out actually does two things. One, it gets it out there, but two, it gives you a cycle to get feedback from the market quicker or feedback from your customer quicker in some of those particular cases. So that's why, like if you look at the Workday methodology, for example, it goes into unit testing, it gets end-to-end testing, then you move into UAT or production dress rehearsal. All of those are iterative design is a part of the iterative design methodology so that you're getting the information, but you're not stuck in one part of something with no decisions being made.
So, as the wrap up, if you had one piece of advice to give to a CTO, CEO, CMO, or employee at a job board or recruitment marketplace, what is it?
Technology alone is not transformation.
Wow.
So,
We're not gonna get better than that.
okay.
Technology alone is not transformation. More technology does not automatically equal people buying your product. It doesn't automatically equal people being able to use and leverage the product. It doesn't automatically equal people being able to action that product inside of their jobs or inside of their organization. Make the technology for the people, solve the problem. In the words of the guy that I created, Waze, fall in love with the problem.
Fall in love with the problem. That's why I've fallen in love with Stephen Roth. Oh, wait, never
Aw.
mind. Oh, hey guys, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Lee. Appreciate you running the show again, Stephen, as you do so ably. And I will see you in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Awesome.
Cheers, Lee. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.